What do you think that's important fundamentals to know when it comes down to real estate?
Really good question. So the fundamentals you should always know about real estate or anyone considering pursuing real estate, whether as an investment, primary home, or anything similar, is that
You're listening to On the Go Voice Podcast, the best generational podcast you'll ever tune into. Listen to the voices of this generation where we seek to identify values, stimulate discussions, and vocalize the community.
So I'm glad that you're on and involved, bro. I'm ready to start tackling this topic because I myself I've been a little I started a little bit of learning about real estate about a year ago with a friend, and it's always been on my mind. So it is something that I look forward to adding into my portfolio when it comes down to making a source of income. And with that being said, for people who are coming in, let's actually touch into the basics when it comes down to real estate. Why don't we first start? What is real estate?
good question. So the textbook definition of real estate is going to be ownership of land and or a building. To add to that, it's not in the dictionary, but like if you're buying a condo, you're really just buying the airspace. So that's what's important about real estate. They're not making it anymore. That's why it always appreciates. So that's something to keep in mind. That's simply what real estate.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what do you think that's important fundamentals to know when it comes down to real estate? I myself haven't even thought about this question myself as well.
Really good question. So the fundamentals you should always know about real estate or anyone considering pursuing real estate, whether as an investment, primary home, or anything similar, is that you need to ask yourself two things. You ask yourself one thing, and the second thing is to keep in mind. So the first thing you need to ask yourself is, when was the best time to buy real estate? And the answer to that is 20 years ago. Okay, cool. When's the second best time to buy real estate?
Okay.
Today's the best time. So the answer to that is always going to be, it was the best day to buy real estate was always yesterday, because it always appreciates. You're never in the losing side when you buy real estate, because in the end, time is always going to help you get back on track, get back that equity and that principal pay down. It always makes sense for you. And we're going to go into a little deeper into that as further into the podcast. So that's number one. That always ask yourself, when was the best time? The second thing to keep in mind is that you should never worry about overpaying for a property, because there's two things that you should keep in mind right there. Number one is that, let's say me and Charles are trying to buy the same house. I'm willing to offer $500,000. Charles offers $510,000, and I say, I really don't want to pay $515,000 because I feel like I'm overpaying.
Right.
But now you need to keep two things in mind. Number one is, if you're willing to pay $515,000, someone else can be willing to pay $515,000.
Nice.
So that's number one. And the second part to that piece is that if you're willing to pay $515,000, that's great. The bank's not going to loan you something on if the house isn't worth it. So if I'm trying to buy the house at $515,000, and the bank says, I see how much you love this house, but we're not going to give you $500,000 so you can buy something that's only worth $480,000. I'm sorry. So that you don't ever have to worry about not being able to afford a property or feeling like you overpaid for a property, because the bank won't let you overpay for property. They're actually they're protecting themselves, but therefore give you some sort of safety, some safety net, so you can feel comfortable with that. That's number one. Number two is, let's say in a situation where the bank says the house is only worth $500,000, you're willing to pay $515,000, and you say, you know what, I'll pocket the other $15,000, or I'll put in the other $15,000 out of pocket. In that situation where you feel like you still overpaid, in the end, it's better to overpay than to never buy anything at all. Because what's going to happen is you're still going to reap all the benefits. And in 30 years, those $15,000, you're not going to remember them. I guarantee it. You're not going to feel bullied. You're not going to feel beaten by the market or any type of feeling like that. I've asked a lot of people and they all feel the same way. That's something important to keep in mind. Always buy real estate and never let the number hold you back from doing something.
Okay. So, I mean, from my experience, a lot of the things that have hold people back, or maybe, they've thought about real estate, is that, I mean, they don't know that it appreciates or even depreciates, right? They don't know what to do with it. And so what you're telling me is that there's a time that it depreciates, right? When it comes down to the market value.
Yes. So quick disclaimer on what I just said.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't completely foolproof, but that's an important word, foolproof. If you do things the right way and have professional help as opposed to doing it yourself because you think you found a good deal,
Okay.
You can put yourself in a pretty good spot if you ask for that professional help. Like you ask a real estate agent, whether it's me or anyone in your community.
Right.
That's number one when it comes to real estate. Ask for help and be encouraged to ask several people. Don't feel entitled to just one or obligated to just one person.
Right.
Now, when I meant back to foolproof, what that means is there's going to be things in contracts, things with the bank and things with the actual agent themselves that's representing the other side that aren't always in your best interest. So when you go and do things alone, it kind of puts you in a tight spot. So then, and that you only realize once you've fallen into that spot. For example, if you fall into a position where it's a variable interest for a loan, so a lot of us remember the 2008, 2009 from what our parents shared with us. It's because people were getting 90-day loans. And all of a sudden the interest rate jumped up dramatically, or balloon loans, which means I pay my mortgage fixed for 7 years, but then after 7 years, I owe all of that money at once, or my payment jumps up $1,500. People in really tight spots, and that's exactly why you need a professional to help you out with that. So ultimately, it comes down to getting the right information, but we don't expect you as the public or as an audience to know those things. And it's not your job. It's your job to find professional help in anything you do, whether it's getting the right doctor, the right lawyer, or in this case, the right realtor.
Nice. I love the transparency that you represent, bro, because it shows a lot that in any industries, there's always gonna be people who's willing to profit more on their side, or who's just looking for their sense of benefit. But then it shows a lot with your character as well, which is why I like you, bro. That you're willing to, work with people. You're looking to see how you can add value versus just like, oh, I'm gonna make a profit because it'll make really quick. And oftentimes I think most of those people don't even stay in the long run. So let's jump into this other part. Like, obviously there's different types of real estate, right? Can you kind of describe that?
Yeah, I mean, it pretty much comes down to residential real estate and commercial real estate. So residential is going to be anything that's 1 to 4 units, like a house, a condo, apartment, something simple like that, or even a duplex or a triplex or a quadruplex, right? Once you get into 5 units or more of a commercial space, then you're going to fall into like apartment buildings. You're going to fall into, business lots and things like that. And then you also have industrial zones, but that's going to be for other specific things that we don't really need to get into. That goes like into this whole other place. And again, if you're touching anything commercial, make sure, I can't stress that more than, residential. That gets a lot more complicated. So make sure you also find professional help on that one.
Right. I've heard a lot of things after you get out of residential. Commercial gets even more complex. And I've heard of industrial. So I'm just like, I can't imagine how complexity was even more. That's perfect. I'm glad that. And most of us here, like let's say in Oxford, what do you see that you see most people live in?
Good question. So as a lot of people, I can go real deep into this one. So
okay.
Now, as of right now, I'll try to stay somewhat on the surface. And
all right, sounds good.
If any of your audience has specific questions about anything, then they can like reach out to you, and we'll go into that. As of right now, California considers itself in a housing crisis. So that's where you see these ideas that housing market keeps going up, which it is. But for the first time, and I'll get into your question, I'm not leaving it behind. For the first
Got it. Thanks for that.
We're calling it a dual market. Now, what that means is it's not only a seller's market, it's also a buyer's market, because the houses are going up, but the interest rates are low. And as a buyer, you shouldn't keep an eye completely on the price of the home. The interest rates are what kill you, or what will make or break a deal. It's what I'm trying to say. So, because of that, California said, okay, interest rates might be low, but people are still intimidated to buy a house, or they may still not be able to afford to or qualify for whatever reason. So what they did is they passed a new law that's called the accessory dwelling unit. They made that legal. So essentially what that is, they basically made it legal to make your house a duplex.
Actually, I want to top off on that. I used to work for a door-to-door company. Sure, and it's a construction company as well. So the door-to-door was just one of the marketing tactics. And that was one of the services they want to do, an ADU. I remember knocking into everybody's doors. Have you ever thought about I forgot what the pitch was, but the question was, I literally would knock on people's door. Hey, my name is Charles. I'm from this company, blah, blah, blah. And right now we're just going out to neighbors to offer you guys a free estimate. Have you guys ever thought about, I think I said an ADU or having a second source of income with using your house or something like that? So that was the pitch. But that's interesting that you brought that up. So anyways, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, absolutely. And that's a good point. There's new companies being created solely off of this. I was talking to one maybe a month or two ago, and they were talking to me about what their pitch is, what they're trying to do, what their goals are as a company, and all that good stuff. And they're really helping a lot of people because this housing crisis, whatever we want to reach out and call it, is we're basically making garages livable space. So you can rent it out, create a little kitchen. Now keep in mind, all these things I'm saying, make sure to get it permitted by the city and make sure everything's legal. You can't just make it because the law says so. You still have to go through the permits of the city.
Yeah, of course.
So that's something important to keep in mind. But now what that means is that there's a lot of families moving into, garages, or there's completely brand new, like a duplex being built on a house with a big lot. Because right now, like Oxnard specifically, which is what my specialty is South Oxnard has these 8,000 square foot lots, and the house is only 1,200 square feet. That gives you an idea of how big the whole lot is.
Wow.
Now you can build 2-3 more houses on it. So with that said, they're saying, you can build another house, and if the garage is there, you can convert the garage too. So that's basically making your house almost a legal triplex. So you're renting out these garages, and who lives in these houses? People that are either looking for affordable living space, or young professionals that are trying to save them money to buy their own properties.
Nice.
And or just families that are getting started. So with that said, not only that, but it's being complemented by people our age, 20 to 25, 30 even, living at home with the family, because financially just makes more sense, and it's becoming more of a big norm. And when I see families trying to buy houses, they're starting to buy them as a unit, as opposed to just the son going out to buy with a girlfriend or a wife, or the other way around. So it's really nice to see that. I know they're doing it from a financial standpoint, but families are starting to do it more together, and families are starting to stay together longer. So
nice.
Pretty interesting to see.
Yeah, that is interesting. I know we didn't really touch back into the question, because I know that's actually one of the things that's allowed people to live in affordable houses too, right? But for our generation, often our dream is to get a single family home, right? The question was, what are the range of amount of people the living expenses are when it comes down to renting or living in an ADU, like you mentioned? How much usually are people paying down if they got a mortgage or something? You know what I'm saying?
Okay, makes sense. Let's say what your monthly costs are if you're a renter versus a homeowner. Is that more or less the question?
Yeah, actually that's actually a better question. See, I'm still learning about what kind of question to kind of cater this,
Okay, good question. So the monthly expenses of a homeowner and renter are different, because the homeowner is going to have their principal and interest, right? Which is going to be what the renter sees as a rent. So a renter in, let's say, Oxnard, for a 3-bedroom, you're looking at about $2,200 for a house, $2,300, $2,400, depending on what part of Oxnard you're looking at. If that's going to be maybe the south, or if you're buying a condo or renting a condo or a house. So let's say $2,300 for easy math, or $2,200. A homeowner for a 3-bedroom, you're looking at a mortgage of it really changes. If you're going to buy a 3-bedroom right now, your mortgage is somewhere shy of $3,000. I just helped a family that got a house for $475. Their mortgage, I think, is about $2,780, so about $2,800. So it's in those price ranges. So
nice.
That's about $500 difference, right? Now, the mortgages for the homeowners are a little higher, only because they include property taxes that you don't have to pay as a renter. And that's about 1.125% of whatever the house you get is. So if you buy a house for $500,000, your mortgage taxes are going to be about $6,000 more or less, somewhere around there. Okay? So somewhere shy of that. So that's included. That's yearly too. So there's that. You're also going to, if you guys want to make, I don't know if you want to make a list about this, but You're going to have a $6,000 payment every year for like indefinitely. And you're also going to have your principal and your interest. So that's $3,000. The renter is going to have, let's say, $2,300. If you want to add to that, you're also going to have things like actually not. I want to say that's pretty much it. It's just going to be those $600 because everything's already included in the. I don't know if you want to redo that one, that whole question.
No. I just wanted to see what the average kind of cost was. I guess I kind of split it off too much because my way of questioning about it wasn't as direct because I'm like not specialized, obviously, as you guys can see. However, I wanted to make this as general as possible for people listening into the podcast. So I think you did a pretty great job kind of tackling the basic stuff.
Ultimately, that would be a breakdown of what goes into the $3,000, whether it's going to be your mortgage insurance, tax, and the interest and the principal.
Okay, cool. So with that being said, because this is a younger generation podcast, like how do you see real estate being important to our generation today?
How do I see real estate being important to generation today?
Like I think there's 3 things that I noticed that might be important is, how we can live, which is why I asked, how much does it usually cost? We want to know how much the expenses is for the younger generation, and also how we can make money out of it. Like if we do want to invest in it in our portfolios, and also how it impacts our life. Maybe like you said, maybe we're looking to provide something for long-term for our family, which is maybe an ADU might do well. So I guess that's kind of the, 3 things that I feel why it might be important. So you want to tackle up on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big topic. So I'll try to see if I can point in a direction to give this kind of
cool.
So how it affects like our daily lives. So it's going to be the way we have, something as simple as peace of mind. I'm going to keep using Oxnard as an example because it's a place, where I focus in. So Oxnard used to have a really bad reputation about 1980s, 1990s for being, a very gang-focused neighborhood. So that's where you see a lot of graffiti crews, a lot of gangs, and a lot of crime. So Oxnard is, very famous for that. That really did go away once the housing prices went up a lot because, we started getting a lot more homeowners moving into the neighborhood because when the prices go up, you're getting more homeowners as opposed to investors. You're getting the investors to live here as opposed to just using it as flips and things like that. So once that started happening, it became just a nicer neighborhood. So now people like you and me, Charles, can enjoy Oxnard knowing that it's a safer neighborhood. So we have better peace of mind. We can feel comfortable walking, in the morning as well as the night now. And people, like a lot of the renters that used to live in Oxnard that it became too expensive for, started moving out to Lancaster, Palmdale, and even Bakersfield. So that's how it affects our daily lives. It tells us who are the people that are living around us are. And that's a really important thing that it's very subtle because we don't really pay attention to that, but it's something we need to kind of keep in mind because it tells us what kind of lives we're going to live in because, it's our neighbors. It's the people we're going to be associated with all the time. So that's number one, simply put, the way it affects the way we make money. Because if you look at the market, and this whole COVID-19 quarantine thing is a great example of what I want to say next. Usually, let's say when the recession happens, the people start feeling very strict with their money because they don't know what's happening. So this creates uncertainty. And when this happens, they don't want to go out to the movies anymore or go to restaurants and spend that extra $100, $60, every week. And when this happens, the businesses start to feel that. And when that happens, they start laying off their expenses, which is going to be the employees. It's going to be one of the main expenses. Once this happens, those same employees that aren't getting the same tips, they're not getting the same hours, they're not getting the job anymore at some points, then what's happening is that they become even stricter with their money and the cycle gets even worse until eventually we get to a point where everything's just so cheap that it just makes sense to still buy it. So that's when the market starts picking back up. That's how the economy works. So in a simple way. Now, right now, the market, it's still really strong, which is really interesting to see because right now, and it's so interesting to say this out loud, I'm getting more contact and activity from people that saying, how do I buy a house than I was 3 months ago. It's insane.
Really?
And asking me, what can I do after, like, when can we go see houses after this whole quarantine thing is done? Can we go see houses? Do I get pre-qualified? What do I do next? And it's amazing to see that. And what I'm trying to do is stay on top of the market and kind of see what's it doing. So
Nice.
now back to the question though, usually the market is going to be the one that dictates how everything moves forward. But in this case, the market's still going very strong. The COVID-19 is what's putting businesses in a tight spot and just kind of skipping all those, the first 2-3 steps. So where we start seeing this thing with the people getting tighter and stricter with their money. So it's really interesting to see how it's affecting us. So right now in a marketplace that we don't understand, we need to kind of just do our best to stay informed and updated on what to do. And we do that by watching, Charles' podcast and things like this, where we get information from every type of source that we can, so we can make the best decision possible. So those are the very simple things that we need to keep in mind when we're looking at the market.
That's awesome. I didn't even consider that maybe people might be looking into it now. When you said there was a lot of people hitting you up, was it people that are looking to be homeowners more, or people that are like investors?
You're getting both sides. When you're getting both of it. So when we're looking at, in this case, we'd almost want to call it like, and man, it's so interesting to say, I'm getting activity from both. So I'm still fairly young enough to not have too many investors. I have about 5-6 investors that I trust and, are qualified to be called investors.
Nice.
And I'm working with, the public, that anyone that wants to look to buy a house here in Oxnard or Ventura County for that matter. So I'm getting, names and activity from both. Right now, I also have ads being posted on social media saying, hey, are you guys still interested in buying a house? And they reach out. And, this started back in February or January. And I was getting, a few leads a day, but that literally doubled as soon as we went into quarantine.
Wow.
Why? It might
I was going to ask you, why do you think that?
That's a good question. So, why that might be because people have almost nothing else to do because they don't want to go out because they're respecting what the government's asking of them, and they're staying on social media. Let's assume that was true though. Why would they click on ads about real estate when, they're supposed to stay indoors? So it puts me in a really interesting position as to what should I make of this. But ultimately, I'm just trying to, do my job as a realtor and just say, you know what, I need to just stay informed, stay on top of it.
Yeah.
So I like that. Questions, I'm always ready, whether we're in quarantine or not.
I love that. And the funny thing is, my last series was more business too. And they talk about how this is a good time for also to market. People are at home. So like a lot of these ads are becoming more effective. Hell, I'm fucking like getting more ads toward me and I'm clicking on them and I'm just like, dude, this is dope. I'm gonna buy shit. But like not a lot of little liabilities, which is interesting in my end. But on that end, that's dope, So for anybody listening, how do we get involved in real estate? I think it would determine what our intentions would be first, right?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's first you need to organize yourself in whatever you're trying to do. So you organize your expenses, what you could afford, and then what's going to be next is you're going to see that it's a lot easier to get into a home than what a lot of people think. So as of right now, we're like Charles and I, we're planning on having a lender, Johnny Mercado, stop by and kind of see what does it take to get into a home from the lending side of it, from the financing side. But just to give you a gist of what you can do of that is, like, for example, my team, we got a family into a house with a grant from the government for about $70,000. They got a grant of $70,000. That's from federal, city, and state, and that was a huge, big deal. A lot of people have questions about that. Yeah, it's insane. So there's that. And number two, we got not me. I don't want to say me. But we're using the same lender. And I'll get into we're using the same lender that got a gentleman into a condo for out of pocket $1,700. The cost of a used car, $1,700. That's closing cost. That's down payment. That's everything. And 2 months later, his mortgage payment starts. Wow. It was insane. And now, to give you another example, my friend and I, or Chris, he's in some of my Instagram videos that he got a family into in Santa Paula, $450,000 home, and he got them in for, I think, a little shy of $5,000. Like, it's so much easier to get into a home, then people think they're just intimidated by these $500,000 figures.
Yeah. Is there usually higher figures to get involved if they're trying to be a homeowner, or?
No, it's really, there's a possibility to add bigger down payments. And obviously the less or the more money you put down, the less your mortgage might be, or the easier to have a more comfortable payment. At the same time, if your goal is to get into a home, you should be more you should not only feel, don't hesitate to do it or to look into it, but feel encouraged to, because there's so many programs available for you that you don't even know about, and it's not your fault. Nobody tells you about these things, and it's hard to market them because they change all the time. But now with keeping that in mind, now that you've seen this podcast and you're saying, you know what? No, I still need to save money for my down payment, or I have bad credit, or there's so many things you can do to offset those things. But I say, you know what? I have a good paying job, but I have student loans, so I don't know if I could afford a house because it wouldn't make sense. There's so many programs that are available to you. Here's one. I just got my degree this year, but I haven't found a job, or I'm about to get a job in 2 months or 3 months or whatever. Your experience getting your degree gives you the ability to qualify to buy a loan.
Seriously,
isn't that insane? And nobody knows about that. Students aren't marketed that. They don't know about it because for whatever reason, it's just not something that people click on. So it's something that you kind of need to go out and look for. So as of right now, if you're looking into buying real estate, it's about either talking to a real estate agent or at least talking to a lender. And don't ever feel obligated. We don't charge anything to give you a private consultation or even an on-the-phone conversation or anything like it.
That's good, man. Love it.
That's important to know as well.
So what about on the other side? People are homeowners, the people who are looking to get investments involved. Usually, they want to rent out the properties, or they want to fix and flip properties, or maybe what other options can you go about residential? That's pretty much it, right?
There's several things to it.
Like contract and wholesale, I guess, but
you can wholesale. There's let's not even wake up that beast, But
no, let's take the wholesaling file, because I know that's a little complex. Even on my end, that was hard to grasp.
Okay, so there's a few ways you can go about with an investment in real estate. So there's 4 huge things to real estate that you can take advantage of, and we'll get into in one of the further questions that I know you have. So, but ultimately, to find an investment, it's going to be you're going to have about a 5% to 6% return on your investments now. That's going to be more or less what the average is right now, and that's a pretty decent investment, especially for real estate.
Is that because of the people that's giving you return as a payment monthly for the fees?
Yes, exactly. So that's going to be let's say I buy a house, more or less a good return is about 5 to 6%. That's a good return, and that's a decent return. You might have smaller returns when it comes to bigger properties. That's something to kind of keep in mind as well. You might have a smaller return. But 5 or 6% is a decent return. Again, it really depends on what your risk is and what the aggressiveness is. You can have
that's interesting.
But something I like about real estate is that if you almost want to consider it a spectrum in regards to investment, you have safety on this side, which is going to be like bonds, which is, when you loan the government money and they give you a 1-2% interest rate for about 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And then you have stocks, which can go up dramatically, but can come down dramatically too. So the aggressiveness is there. So safety and aggressiveness. With real estate, I don't even want to say it's in the middle. With real estate, you're getting the best of, aggressive growth through something like stocks. And you're getting the safety net from bonds because you're always going to need real estate. So it's something, it's a really important thing that I want to make a distinction of, because it just makes sense to still buy real estate. But in regards to, percentages and more or less, it really depends on every house. A standard decent return on a rental property should be about 5 to 6% return. Anything above that, I would consider it, extra gravy. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So, anything below that would just have to be a really good deal in your case.
Aside from the percentage, I know obviously you could do some research and that, reach out to people like you to look into the market. Let's say I want to get I want to rent out a property right now,
Mhm.
right? How would I go about that?
Okay. So the actual process, let's say, Charles, you found a house, you bought it, you're an escrow, you just closed on it. Okay, now what? And now you're a sitting duck with a mortgage that's coming in a month or two.
Right.
So you want to rent it out. Awesome. So obviously you can hire a property management company, but if you were going to do it yourself, which I recommend you do, at least for your first one, so you get the experience of how to deal with tenants, how to deal with problems that might arise and all that kind of good stuff, is number one, keep in mind prevention is better than the cure. So your biggest hurdle is going to be making sure that you don't become impatient about finding the right tenant and just letting someone go in because your mortgage is coming up and you don't want to pay an extra $3,000 because you didn't really have to, because you could have gotten a tenant for that.
Makes sense.
So that's going to be your biggest hurdle. Don't get impatient. Try to look for the right one. In regards to finding the right one, there's so many things I can go into about, what kind of things to keep in mind. It's going to come down to, simply put, ability to repay. So a lot of people that are, renting out their properties, they're saying, you know what, you got to make sure you look at their credit. You got to make sure that, they're good people and those, but there's a really hard it's a really hard process to kind of, just judge someone off of personality and how you guys meet. Because one thing to keep in mind is that on a first date, everyone is on their best behavior.
That's true.
Everyone is on their best behavior. That includes renters when you're trying to rent out a property. And if you're a renter and you're trying to rent somewhere else, keep these things in mind. You should do the same. Dress to impress. Look presentable. Speak with for formal English. Speak correctly. Be kind. Be courteous, and don't get upset for whatever reason. And just be as nice as possible. As a homeowner and someone that's going to rent out a property, keep that in mind. You want to make sure that you don't fall for the we're really nice people, and then fall into a really tight spot because me and my dad were renting out a property and we did the same thing. We were trying to be the nice guys, and it was this huge problem with this whole eviction thing, and it was just nasty. And we can talk about that in the future, but it's something that I learned firsthand. So and then the investors tell you, hey, Adrian, got to watch out for that. And I say, I wish I would have learned this a lot sooner, but okay, it's awesome. I learned it now. I'm done with it. So keep that in mind. Everybody's on their best behavior. So when you're looking at someone to let them into the home as a renter, don't look at credit. That's going to be important, but don't let that be the focus like other people do. Ability to repay is more important. So what I mean by that is, what kind of job do they have? Is it stable? Is it a stable job? And not only that, but are they now how much money do they have in the bank as well? So you can ask for bank statements to see, like, if they have $6 in the bank, $8 in the bank, but they're making $45,000 a year. They're making okay money to rent out the place, but you're not going to feel comfortable if they go wrong with 1 month because they have no savings behind them. So that's something you want to keep in mind as well. Ability to repay is going to be key. Ability to repay, not credit and not anything else. Ability to repay. That's really important.
Okay, cool. Thanks for sharing that. That's a good insight when it comes down to looking for people. So what I'm seeing is, once you actually secure a house and you haven't it's under your title, whether you get a loan or you pay it on cash, which who knows who'll be able to do that. Sure. That means you'll have to just market for tenants, people who's actually looking for, or you can have a property management do all that, and then that's when all the process starts. There's no like. You have to sign like some sort of LLC in order to actually rent out a place out?
Yeah, and good question. I didn't even go into that. I'm sorry about that. So
that's all good.
Let's say you have the house now. The way you market for the tenant that you're looking for is, you're going to go on every real estate website possible. So that's going to include Zillow, Trulia, Mooly, all those kind of websites. And you just put, a house for rent. Simple as that. You can also hire a real estate agent to do that, and they'll do it for you. Again, that's not necessarily property management, but they'll just get you a tenant. So that's something that's a lot more affordable, but it really depends up to you. Now, but you can, again, put it on Craigslist, Trulia, Redfin, Zillow, all those kind of places, and just kind of put beautiful 3-bedroom house for rent. Here's the rent. Reach out to me with this number. So it's nothing too difficult on that part. And you don't need to be an LLC or any type of corporation. It can just be you renting it out to another person. but you should always make sure to get a lease signed. And again, this is when it comes down to that whole thing where you want to have a professional, a realtor look at it. And usually everybody has a friend in the business that's a realtor. If you don't feel comfortable reaching out to them for whatever reason, you want to mix family with business, reach out to somebody else. Make sure somebody looks over that lease and consider and try to look for someone that has a rental property as well, because I might be able to share with you something that someone that joined the business 2 years ago wouldn't have.
Yeah.
Would have been me. And so it's important to know that.
Cool, man. That's awesome. It's actually, it sounds a lot more simpler than when you put it. That's why you gotta have a professional like Adrian, right? And they just simplify it for you, because my head would be like, dude, what do I do first? Okay. And other than that, guys, for anybody listening, thanks for tuning in. Looking forward to see what this series can do for you guys. So stay tuned. Thanks again for listening, guys.